Good day, good evening. This is Coach Emmanuel here with another episode of the Uncharted Talent Sports channel podcast. Today, we're going to talk about an important yet stressful but can be rewarding topic that a lot of Canadian and Quebec parents are pondering with their football player son at this moment. What will the prep school offer? Yes, this episode will talk about prep school in this period of time. What are most parents and players going through in terms of waiting for an answer? And also, given we're talking about the prep school process, one of the things we're also going to talk about is finances. What? Finances with football? Yes. Remember, it is not a free game until someone wants to pay up. So today we're going to talk about why, as parents, it seems like you actually need to overspend for your son's football journey. But don't forget, you are working for the day until he gets overpaid for his football talents. So stay tuned. We got a juicy episode here. We'll address some key notions and content that you need to be aware of in this journey if you are in the process for this prep recruiting cycle or if you want information ahead of the future cycles. So stay tuned. All right. So basically, in this month of February, right now, I've been at this for about 3 years now, where I've helped parents who are actually, applying at prep school after numerous interviews, inquiring about prep possibilities for them and their players in terms of where can he go. But the thing that I think sometimes get lost in the shuffle is, regardless of if you end up at the prep school program with a football team who's going to tell you, man, if you come here, we're going to cover everything, everything. Or they're going to tell you, hey, listen, at this juncture, you're a good player or you're a good candidate, but here you may have to pay up 20, 30, 40,000 just to come here. There's still some financial aid, but I think one of the things that you have to really be mindful is, if you are currently in that process, it has to first be because you do believe that your child who's playing football has a talent to export, and I'll use the term export, in export, import, as the talent to be exported south of the borders. No, there's no tariffs yet, at least last I heard, for exporting bread. Anyways, but jokes aside, it has to, I'm pretty sure you as a parent believe that your son has what it takes to play good there. Now, the thing that you want is to always remember this: you're only sending him down south because he has verified, evaluated NCAA Division I upside. And what do I mean by this? Well, what about your son has been validated outside of your household, outside of the coaching that came from the program that your son is from, that based on the skill set and athletic abilities that your son brings, there is a market at the NCAA full ride level for someone of your son's caliber. Have you ever asked yourself that question? So let me kind of give you some examples of players that I've dealt with. Shekai Mills-Knight. Shekai Mills-Knight, when he came out, was 6'1 and a half, 6'2", 195 pounds, playing running back. And if I show you his tape from his North Shore days, just look at the first play and you'll understand what made him a commodity that coaches, when they actually fell on his tape, were like, wait a second, who's that cat, right? Although you could see some rawness, you're not sure about who he's playing against, there was some tools there, which is why it was super enticing for a school like Baylor School. And 38 offers later, he is at Ole Miss. Bradley Ilunga-Bisselele, linebacker, similar stuff. Super intriguing off of tape. You see the long arms, you see the movement ability. Although he was raw coming out of CCL, but look where he's at if you look at his senior tape. And there's going to be an episode we're going to look at some of the guys to know where were they before prep and what have they become since, to understand what they're offering. Maybe throughout some other players. Moussa Seck, we spoke about him in our last episode based on why is he getting so much offers, right? When he was at PDM, he was a certain way. 1 year after being in McCallie, he is something that warrants that. But Moussa is an offensive lineman who's 6'4", 228 pounds, athletic, strong, powerful, nimble, and a lot of qualities. Oh, Bradley, by the way, was a linebacker when, he's currently 6'2", 220, but he came out, he was 6'1", 6'2", 205, 210 pounds, athletic, basketball body. Do you get the concept where I'm getting at? Usually the reason, especially from Quebec, you want to send your son prep is you have someone who's evaluated your son that says, you know what? He actually needs to go there after his Sec 5 because his junior year, so his year before his last year of high school, prep school in the States, he has an opportunity provided he shows the skills he's shown here in Quebec or wherever else in Canada. With physical development he's going to get in the off season, following that season, to meet with coaches that regularly comes to set school you are considering. Or whether it's in December, January, or in the spring practices that will happen in the spring, you've evaluated that this is the type of candidate that in that process has the makings of someone that can warrant attention based not on your biases as a parent, not on your local coaches that believe in the kid, but because there's verified concept that what he brings is a hot commodity or a wanted commodity. So what does that mean? If your son for right now is undersized or maybe tall but not fully developed or doesn't look developed at all, kind of like pre-Captain America before he went in that machine, that type of thing, don't send him prep. You should abort the process right now. Too dangerous. Alert. Alert. Because you also have to be, as parents, want to look at what makes it that he's actually ready to be moved to a different country with different expectations and different types of athletes. And if you heard me enough, you've heard me say the following. When was the last time locally that you can say there was verified evidence that your son has played against guys who were provincial, state champion in track, wrestling, shot put, discus, those types of Olympic sports? That Americans, when they are actually not playing football, the high-end ones are competing at the highest of levels to compete in those types of sports. Unless they play competitively basketball or do other things. Or like going on 7-on-7 tournaments competitively. Or if you're a quarterback, they usually, if you look at Twitter pages and whatnot, those cats are being groomed by QB coaches galore, developing their mechanics and things like that with guys who are known to develop guys at the D1 level. So in other words, you have to make sure to get unbiased feedback before you get through a process, or even if you're in the middle of that process and you're not sure, or okay, maybe has brought to light the fact that as much as you love your child, maybe there's something missing. Then leave him local. Let him do his pre-university stuff. Yes, he's competing at maybe levels that may not attract a lot of NCAA coaches going through the doors. And I encourage you to be in a process that educates you on the NCAA recruiting calendar and what do coaches do at certain stages. But the thing that you don't want to compromise is your child's ability to be developed physically and get tape. Those two combinations are key. All right. Yes, at one point there's the competition part that if it can be given and actually be tested, great, fair enough. Go to these, settings, prep schools that are a bit more trustworthy for these coaches in terms of competition. But the thing that you don't want is put your child in a compromising situation just because he has a belief and love level that is that high, but yet his physical abilities based on what is competing out there, like kind of like a light heavyweight or light or cruiserweight, I don't know, featherweight, because he's the featherweight champion of the world, thinks he can go against the heavyweight champion of the world. No one is going to want that featherweight champion to face the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing or whichever sport. Why would we do that for your child? So those are the types of questions, if you are in the process, you kind of want to ask yourself. But now let's say you've cleared that out. And all right, yeah, he does have the other side of the coin. He has those abilities, he's just too raw. Maybe not given the best local opportunities to display them, may not have had all the accolades in the world or local accolades with his peers, but he's such a great athlete and he has enough of an IQ and he has enough traits that if the right coach takes that player and molds him a year or two, why not take the shot? The only thing I would say for that type of candidate is if the tape is too raw, that means he is not advanced enough, then coaches are not going to read into, they'll have time to coach that candidate up enough time to meet the NCAA recruiting timeline that player has, unless he's coming out as a grade 9 or grade 10, where you would have 3-4 years ahead in the States to be groomed. That's different. But if he's a Sec 5, grade 11, going to repeat grade 11, you have to get the feedback. It's okay if he stays CEGEP and does 3 years to be groomed and whatnot. Yes, it's not the most compatible style of football to American football, given we're talking about 11-man football versus 12-man football, Canadian rules versus American rules, but it's still football nonetheless, where he's able to show tape and abilities. So, but you have to then make sure that if he's going CEGEP, especially CEGEP, go to a place that has a plan to play him, not a place that says we're good, here's why he has to come here. It's two different things. Okay, but that's candidate where athletically seems to be it, but the tape may come back feedback-wise where he doesn't have the most. And I've been there with some guys where unfortunately it just mattered that, man, that player started a year or two ago and being actually better skilled, that would have been a no-brainer. But sometimes timing, you have to play around through and around timing, not avoid the consequences of timing. You just have to play with what you have. Now, those of you who have enough skill set in terms of proven tape, but also actually you meet the part to an extent, whether athletically, culturally. And this is what I want to say culturally. Your mindset, you feel that it's more for the American game than the Canadian game. Personally, I kind of feel the same way. And it's not a diss to Canadian or Quebec football. I just think that there's different flavors, you know? Some guys, some people like it spicy, some like it salty, some like it sour. Find your taste and own up to it. Don't fall for the peer pressure. You know, some guys, I see too many of y'all are falling for the peer pressure. Man, if I say that I want to go to the States too much, people are going to think I'm crazy. Or if I say, you know what, I'm going to do the bold move to even go to a prep school in Canada called Football North, man, the CEGEPs, the coaches or players or my peers are going to come after me and be like, you're crazy. How can you leave Quebec for Ontario? Hey, there's a track record, by the way, but that's another topic. Or why are you leaving here for that level of prep school that has no track record or barely any? Sometimes that's why you need to know how to do your homework for each situation. Let me explain. Can some CEGEPs have connections with NCAA D1 coaches? Absolutely. They can. Does it mean that they have a high volume of players that continuously go to these schools? Not necessarily. But is it true that some CEGEPs have a better track record than a lot of high schools in the States in terms of placing guys in D1? Absolutely. But when you actually find a prep school or an opportunity that actually has a rolling, what do I mean by rolling? There's not 1 year, there's 1 or 2 guys, and then there's 2 years, no guys going D1. If that prep school you're applying actually is sending out every year repeatedly, at least 2 or 3 guys consistently, I'm sorry, if they see that you're a candidate and you do meet what they want, you better take that opportunity seriously. You better take it seriously, because then what? Why would you take an opportunity that's beneath what God has put in you? The level of ability and talent and potential to be coached up the right way. We're talking about you getting specialized coaching for a year and a half, 2 years to meet the game you're trying to bank on that can reward you with, which I'm going to get to the finance part, highly rewarding opportunities to be a student and to be an athlete. And that's not even yet talking about the potential NIL opportunities if you warrant that. But let's say you are a Ivy League school type of student where you're great football player, but you may not have the high athletic upside to go to the FBS level, to the group of 5 level, or even the FCS full ride level that are just really made mostly the most competitive teams like the North Dakota State, the South Dakota State, these types of schools, the Montana States. But you're a good enough football player, but you're such a great student. Do you know that going to the Harvards of the world, the Yales of the world, the Cornells, the Browns of the world, the Dartmouths of the world, you know that people who actually come up with a diploma from these schools, they are in a better position to start with a job, even if they don't continue to play football, that starts in the 100,000 US per year, starting at like entry level. We start there. Not this is the end, this is the start. How many opportunities do you currently have locally at the university level, wherever you are, that can say the same thing? That if you have a diploma, Like my wife, she has a diploma from McGill. She has a master's in McGill. But would I say that she's had those opportunities? Not necessarily. Does it mean that no one from McGill can achieve that? Not saying that. But what I'm saying is we're talking about education fully covered while you have an optimal experience playing football, and your starting point graduating from these reputable schools is there. Different thing. It's a different ballgame because there's a different set of opportunities linked to the pipeline that these types of schools have created. Same thing if you have the talent to land like a Shekai or Ole Miss, that's a FBS Power 4 school. Great opportunities. Or at the Buffalo where Bradley is going. Hey, do you know that Buffalo is the school where Khalil Mack, former NFL Defensive Player of the Year, actually went to? Yes, guys in the MAC do go to the NFL. So you have to take the thing that I really, really encourage your parents is to not look at how much it is going to cost you now. Sorry, I got interrupted by my daughter. So I had to pause. But yeah, so you have to be aware, you have to treat this prep process not just as an opportunity for what it costs you today. You have to, the way you're gonna build the return, not what is the cost of today to go to that school or for this year of next year. What are you placing your son in a position to yield in return that you won't be able if he stays locally, regardless of if it costs you 5,000 after financial aid per year, 10,000, 15, 20, 30. And then you as a family have to determine why wouldn't it be worth if what we're going to be able to look at in the next segment, if the math suggests that what you're going to end up spending is not even the equivalent of 5-10% of what your son is going to get back in return 4 years in university for mostly, if not fully covered education and with NIL, name, image, and likeness opportunities. Have you taken the time to compare the post pre-university opportunities as well, provided your son stays here, to be like, but what's going to be in it for your son to be worth, we're just shutting down those opportunities down south just because we feel that it's going to be too costly today. If today is your indicator of tomorrow, no, you have to use today to create a better tomorrow. Not that if your today is your today looks like tomorrow, be scared. It should, because we all should be working at making it better. Don't you agree? So the thing that you want now is, if now you have all the tangible evidence that your son is the right candidate, based on what also when you interview these coaches, what they're telling you is the upside. What are similar players that look like him, that have played like him, have gone through? Meaning, at that school, do players who look like him actually go to D1 opportunities, or they just end up going back to where you're from? You have to also interview the coaches, no? Based on their track record, not just based on where they are. But if it does, then you have to show you're doing your homework past what it's gonna ask you. Because the money you don't spend today, first of all, it's for sure you're spending it on something that is clearly not guiding you in the direction you want to be tomorrow, especially if not for your son. Most likely, we all have foolish expenses. Hey, look at how we're spending on Christmas, for birthdays today. we spend to impress people that don't really matter, or even if they do matter, we overspend, fearing we don't want to hurt them by not providing gifts. That, guess what? Next year you're going to be in the same cycle, figuring out the same thing, but as your situation and my situation gotten better, instead of looking at what can I do today that will open me opportunities to not to please people without hurting me, or in this case, not hurting your son. And that's where you have to do the mathematic calculation. So I'm going to show you some tangible evidence on how much does it cost tuition-wise at some universities. How much do you really spend pre-university, with tangible examples? And you be the judge on, is it you that's spending too much for the risk of someone overpaying for your son's talent as a student athlete?